Welcome to Flip It Furniture. My name is Amy. Today we're going to be making over this accent table I got for free from my grandma. It's a really cute accent table, but there is a problem. There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of bubbling. It's not real wood. She got it from, she said, Home Goods or one of those stores. So I'm not exactly sure where she bought it, but she was getting rid of it because of the damage. So let's flip it. I'm using Crud Cutter to clean my piece. I'm just using an old rag and I'm spraying Crud Cutter all over. I'm going to wash it down because it's not that dirty, and then I will rinse it with a wet rag with some water just to make sure there's no cleaner residue left on the piece. I remove all the hardware and I decide that I'm going to keep this hardware because it's actually pretty cute. It's in good condition. Maybe we'll just add some gilding wax. So I continue cleaning. I make sure that I clean inside the drawers. I take the drawers out. I clean inside the cubbies and just everywhere to make sure that it's nice and clean. Now for the top, I'm using a sanding pad just to make sure that I get a nice smooth finish before I start doing anything else to the piece. There's no way I'm going to get the bubbles out, but I can smooth it down pretty good. I'm using some wood filler to fill in some of the holes on the top. I'm not worried about the bubbles, but I do want to fill in the holes. Once it's dry, I sand it smooth with my sanding pad. Now because this isn't real wood and I'm not sure exactly what material it is, I know that it's smooth, it feels like plastic. I'm going to use my clear bonding primer from Country Chic. I love this primer because it is so easy to use. I only need to apply one coat and then I let it sit for at least 12 hours. I let it sit overnight until the next day and then I apply my paint. A little bit of this primer goes a whole long way. I don't know, I think it's just a habit to put a lot on my brush, but you really don't need to put that much on your brush. I'm having a little bit of pooling here because I keep dipping too much on my brush. But once I finish the piece, I just go back and make sure that there's no drips, that everything is smooth. Here we are and it's the next day, so I'm going to start painting. And I'm going to do a base coat of Soiree by Country Chic. This is a clay-based paint, and I think it's going to be absolutely perfect to make some texture on this piece because there is so much of that bubbling and the surface isn't nice and smooth. I love to give a textured finish over it. During this project, I'm not going to worry about which brush I'm using because if it leaves brush strokes, that's just fine. We kind of want that texture, that chunkiness. I want to make a stone like an old world finish over this. I want to make it look like it's almost like pottery. Natural bristle brushes are great for texture, so I'll be using some of those. I'm going to use my synthetics, and I have some that are both natural and synthetic. So I'm just going to use what I have here. And I'm only applying one coat of this Soiree as my base on the entire piece, and then we'll go into building the finish. I let my paint dry for at least an hour. I actually recommend 2 hours because you can reactivate your clay paint with water. So I'm not going to use a lot of water on this piece because I don't want to take this off. So now, just to sort of wetten this up, I'm using more Soiree and I'm just doing a stippling motion just to get some more paint on there. You could build up your layers. You could layer it and then wait for it to dry and then do another layer of another color, wait for that to dry. But I like working when I'm working. I get very impatient and I don't like to wait for the paint to dry, and I actually find it a lot easier to work with while the paint is wet. So I'm stippling the Soiree and now I'm grabbing Pop the Bubbly. I do have another brush and I'm just adding some of Pop the Bubbly onto it. I'm not trying to cover up Soiree, I'm just stippling randomly over it. Some spots I have it a little bit heavier, some spots I have it a little bit lighter, and that's what's going to give us that texture and that dimension. The more of the paint that you put on your brush, the more texture you're going to get. but since I'm layering so many different colors, I'm not adding a ton. So this color is Simplicity, and it's a really, really white, like bright white. I'm just adding a little bit of this over the top. And again, I'm not trying to cover in any specific area, and I don't want to leave a lot of chunks. I want it to be blended out a little bit. So I go back there with my Pop the Bubbly and I try to blend that white out just a bit. And here I'm just adding a teeny tiny bit more of that Simplicity, and then Pop the Bubbly again to smooth it out. And then my last color that I'm going to be using is called Driftwood. And this is the darkest color that we're going to have on this piece. And I'm using a chip brush. I just want to outline the square space here, or rectangle. This is going to give that shadowy effect on the outside, and I want to make sure that it's blended. So I go back with my other colors and I just make sure that the line, I don't want it to look like you can see the driftwood so much. I do want it to look a little faded, just like a shadow. So I go back with my colors and I'm just blending them until I like it. And I follow this same exact process on every rectangle of the piece. And so they're each getting that step by step, the same thing. So first it's Soiree, second it's Pop the Bubbly, third it's Simplicity, and then I go with my Driftwood, and I just make sure everything's blended really nice with all the different brushes. You can use the same brush for the entire piece, but I don't recommend it, only because then the colors, because they're so similar, they just start to look mudded. So for me, when they're this similar, to use different brushes really helps so that you can see each individual color. And here I'm just showing you again that I am following the exact same process I did on the other one. I'm a pattern painter. That's what I call myself. I like to find, I call it the recipe. I like to find the right recipe and then I follow it throughout my piece. And that's how I kind of get that uniformity. Even with, really creative finishes, I still always find the pattern on my piece so that I can follow it, in my head. So right now I'm saying, the 4 colors, and it just makes everything really easy for me. I know that I'm using the chip brush for the last color. I know it's going on the outline. So it really is figuring out your pattern is like the creative part. Applying it is also creative, but once I have that pattern, it's almost like, okay, automatically I know it's going to be fine, it's going to look good, and you just apply it in this way and then it turns out, super nice. Some of the bristles are falling off of my brush, and I think this was from my chip brush. My chip brush is new, and when I get a new brush, usually I like to rinse it and add a little bit of dish soap, and then I just kind of wash it out, and all those bristles will fall out right away, and then it's good to go. I didn't get a chance to do that, so I think that's what keeps happening here. So now for the border and that little ledge, I'm gonna add the driftwood, and I'm gonna do that for the 3 tiers on this table. For the finishing touches, we're gonna add Dixie Belle's Dixie Dirt in the color Earth. But before I do that, I have to add the Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in clear first. So I'm just using my artist brush for this. I'm going to apply it in all the creases on this table, and it'll give it that authentic sort of outdoors, old, dirty look. I don't want it to be super prominent, the Dixie dirt, so that's why I'm not using Besting wax. The dirt comes up just a little bit softer. The dirt is a powder, so you want to add the clear wax first, and the clear wax is water-based. So I'm gonna let this dry when I'm all done overnight, and then the next day, or you could wait a few days, but for me it dried in one day. So then the next day I could apply my sealer right over it. And if you get it somewhere you don't want it to be, you can grab a wet ones or a baby wipe or any kind of wet wipe and just wipe it back. Or you could use your clear wax. Like I go back with my clear wax after I've applied my Dixie dirt just to kind of smudge it and soften it up a little bit. So again, I applied my wax first, and that acts like the glue, and then I applied the dirt right over that. And now I'm using my wax brush just to refine the line, to kind of soften it up and to make it look exactly how I want. The wax acts a little bit like an eraser, but it also can soften it up. I want to add a little bit of color to the knobs, so I'm using bronze gilding wax and I'm adding it to the raised details. To seal my piece, I'm using Country Chic's clear coat, and I apply 3 coats of the clear coat, waiting an hour in between my coats. I like using this clear coat for a textured finish because instead of having it feel so rough, the clear coat does soften it up just a little bit. And I go around the drawers and I make sure that there are no drips. And here's a reminder of what it looked like before. And here it is today. This piece was ready for the garbage. It was really cute as is, but it was so damaged that nobody would want it in their home. So I love the stony, old world look to cover those kind of imperfections. Now this piece will be around for at least another 10 years. And you can do this pattern with so many different colors. I could have added a little bit of green. That would have been really cool. You could do it in blues, any color would look really great. I love the simplicity of the pattern I used on this piece. If you enjoyed this video and you like Country Chic paint, check out this video right here because I will show you how I blend Country Chic paint. And I will see you next week.